Hujambo, habari yako. My name is Rebecca Gyumi. I'm a feminist from Tanzania, Executive Director at Msichana Initiative Organization, an organization that works to advance the rights of girls in Tanzania. We pride ourselves in centering our approaches in feminist principles, in ensuring that girls' rights in Tanzania are safeguarded and girls can enjoy recognition, dignity, and excel to their fullest potential. The young women leaders in Tanzania, just like any other country, are organizing and have been organizing for a long time. It gives me pleasure that I'm able to narrate how the young feminists in particular have been organizing around the ending child marriage agenda. Tracing it back on the timeline, started in 2016 when we filed to challenge the Law of Marriage Act of Tanzania of 1971, which allows girls as young as 14 to get married, unlike boys where the minimum age of marriage was 18. The same year in July, the High Court ruled in favor of girls and declared that this law was unconstitutional, it was discriminatory, and also ordered the government to amend this law within 1 year. But of course, to our surprise, government appealed against this decision, and we had to win again at the Court of Appeal in Tanzania, which is the highest court in our country, in October 2019, where the 3 judges of Court of Appeal of Tanzania affirmed the High Court decision that this law was unconstitutional, it was discriminatory, and affirmed that the government had to amend this law within 1 year. Initially, from 2016 to 2019, it was Msichana Initiative who was largely involved through the case that we filed. But we saw the partners joining in the process, in the movement, in the petition, along the line. It was important that we strive to bring everyone around the advocacy for the parliament to amend the law. After we won at the Court of Appeal in 2019, it was important that we actually organize around increasing efforts in ensuring the Parliament of Tanzania amend this law and raise the minimum age to 18. What we actually learned was, although the young women feminists were organizing, they were organizing in their own agenda. So we really wanted, through the ending child marriage agenda, to see ways that young feminists in Tanzania could come together and really connect their efforts, energy, in understanding and having a common agenda on how to raise the minimum age to 18, but also raise the public voices and other sects of voices in ensuring that child marriages were ending in Tanzania. What we also learned or realized was the senior feminist or the past activists who were part of the women's rights movement in Tanzania, they had their own way or strategies of organizing. It was important for us to create ways that the senior feminists and the young feminists could come together and work around this issue. So promoting the intergenerational linkages, promoting the intergenerational understanding through the intergenerational dialogue. We also wanted to promote a collective advocacy between the national and grassroots organizations, because we know grassroots organizations are very important in ensuring girls, where they are protected. And the national organizations are also important in their own way, because when it comes to advocacy, they have a leverage in how they can pull the critical mass, resources, etc. So we knew for sure, for this movement to be very vibrant, there has to be a way that a collective effort between national and grassroots organizations could be enhanced. It was important that we first build consensus around understanding our common issues, understanding our common agenda, but also understanding the fear that each generation had in regard to the agenda that they were carrying. So because the government was given 1 year in 2019 to amend the law, and as you remember, in 2020 Tanzania went through the general elections. So at that time we were not able to do much. In 2021 we held the first national convening that brought together the senior feminists and the young feminists to build consensus around the issue of child marriage, but also the general issue of movement building and how movement could actually organize around this issue. And some of the issues that we found out through that consensus building meeting was many of the young feminists were shying away from, you know, these spaces of movement or coming together as, you know, young feminists because of issues like resources, which many times resulted into them working in silos. And they were also disconnected in the sense that the young feminists were working on their own issues, and the senior feminists were also working on their own issues without sharing strategies. So each generation was working separately. But we also realized many of the young feminists had fear of feminism for many reasons, including the myth around it. And so it was important, especially for Tanzanian context, to demystify the myth around, you know, feminism. The young feminists could actually learn what worked in the senior feminist movement in their times of Beijing, of, you know, enacting some of the landmark laws in Tanzania like SOSPA, the land rights. But at the same time, the senior feminists had a lot to learn too from the young feminists, including how they are using social media, how they are organizing around, you know, the multimedia in bringing their agenda out to the public. So from there, we organized different strategies to actually first center the young feminist voices, but also ensuring that, you know, we are closing this gap between these two generations. So young feminists had an opportunity to design their own caravan as a way to mount pressure, to educate community, but also bring out, you know, the girls and young women voices who were the survivors and victims of child marriages in our community. A caravan trip in the regions of Shinyanga, Tabora, and Dodoma, where through this caravan trip they were able to meet with fellow young women and girls and talk to them, but also write opinion pieces and articles in different newspapers. At the same time, the young feminists were using the social media campaign, Nizamu ya Wabunge, which translates to is parliamentarians' turn to amend the Law of Marriage Act, because we knew judiciary's role was over and it was parliamentarians' time to actually amend the law. What was also interesting was the reflection meetings that we have been holding since 2021, because we knew it was important to create safe spaces where young feminists and senior feminists can periodically meet and discuss about, you know, different strategies that they are using, but also challenges that they are facing as they are continuing with the campaign. So we have been doing that since 2021, but also created a task force which includes both the senior feminists and the young feminists. And this task force then is very critical in grounding the movement, grounding the strategies, and how this campaign in particular could actually be carried out. So we think that is very important, because then the core leadership, the intergenerational leadership is really visible in the way that the campaign is promoted. So what we are seeing now is the ministry clearly coming out and declaring that they are siding with the position that this law should be changed. and the age should be raised to 18. So this for us, and especially for the young feminists who have been campaigning for the law to be changed, it's a clear testament that, you know, when young women leaders come together and organize around an issue that they are passionate about, using the strategies that they best know how, while standing on the shoulders of giants, the senior women who have come before us, and learning from their strategies, good things can actually happen, just like what we are seeing at the moment. I think if at all I am to actually reflect from the process and how the young women leaders have been organizing, what I can say is really there is power in a collective, power in coming together, but also power in grounding ourselves in the movement. The support has to be long-term, it has to be flexible. I think in any social justice movement, resistance is almost like part of it. And we had plenty of them in the process. One of them was, I remember in 2016, when the government appealed against the decision, the minister responsible for Constitutional and Legal Affairs, he clearly came out to the public and saying, you know, we are actually appealing because we want the highest court of the country to affirm the decision so it can be final. But honestly, we knew that was just politics, because what happened after 2019 was nothing like, you know, the government just wanted to affirm. The minister who gave the public statement in 2016 was not the one in 2019 when the Court of Appeal was giving out the decision. This particular minister in 2019, first of all, he's a law professor. Secondly, he was my lecturer when I was pursuing a law degree at the University of Dar es Salaam. And I remember clearly, he used to teach family law, where the Law of Marriage Act was part of the laws that he used to teach. And he used to specifically talk about Law of Marriage Act as among the laws that, you know, needed to be amended immediately. And he was wondering himself why this law was not changing. Surprisingly, in 2019, because now he was a minister, a politician, he had a different discourse. He was basically promoting that the Law of Marriage Act was among the best law in Africa. Now, thinking as a young woman, coming out actually to defend our position against teachers who taught us in school about the same thing, it was something that we could not even fathom with. Going to the parliament and then giving out actually a public statement saying we want to go back to the community to collect opinions. And then we also had to come out and say we are against this, actually protesting against the ministry and say no, we do not agree with the government decision to go out to collect opinion, because this is going against the Court of Appeal ruling. So every time we had to assert our position, we had to always come out and speak truth to power, because that also meant that, you know, the gain that we had at the Court of Appeal was in jeopardy if we were not grounding ourselves into saying we wanted to see accountability and really government executing this ruling. And of late, of course, the ongoing resistance that we are currently receiving is from the Muslim sect. The Muslim Council of Tanzania has come out very clearly with their position, saying they are against the amendment of the law. And for them, they think a girl, even at 11 years old, is ready to be married as long as she has attained puberty. You do not want to open a discussion against, you know, religious beliefs. No one will win in that discussion. So what we are grounding ourselves as a movement is to say we want to see accountability. We want to see the government actually respecting the Constitution, which proclaims Tanzania as a secular state. We know people have their own different religion, different beliefs, and we do not want to entertain discussions that divide us, you know, in our religious belief. We think government should ground itself on the Constitution and execute the Court of Appeal ruling, you know, without exception, putting it in without exception. We will not back down just because of a promise. we want to ensure that the bill is tabled for sure. And when it's tabled, we want to ensure this bill has no exception. And then, of course, this bill is passed. Yeah, but for now, I think the only thing that we are happy with is how we have remained sober and grounded on our issue, on our agenda, on our movement.